than that, primarily because we've been a little homeless. So overwhelmed with moving and everything else that's been going on in our lives personally, and we just needed to take a little break. But we're excited to be back with you guys and to have our guests today, two of my best friends, AJ and Megan, who are the founders of praxismetrics.com. As you saw in my email, they're kind of the go-to experts and the go-to company when it comes to anything data and metrics related in our industry and well beyond it. I sent out a couple of y'all's existing clients and previous clients that you've worked with. So why don't y'all just say hi real quick and give everybody some background information about you guys and Praxis. Some of your clients I think would be really cool to talk about as well, and we'll get started.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and Mike, can I share this screen yet? We'll stay on video, but nope, not yet.
That's okay.
Go ahead and get started.
Let me give you that. Yeah, let me give you that ability real quick.
While we're pulling that up, we run a data agency. So we're basically an outsourced data team. And we specifically work with scaling companies that typically are in the small to mid-sized business space on their way up, the ones who are really committed to growth. So we've worked with a lot of different e-commerce brands, as well as info product marketers, as well as marketing agencies, as well as mega churches. We've done all sorts of things, including manufacturing, right? But one of our core passions and niches is definitely in the e-commerce and info marketing space, just because AJ used to run a digital marketing agency, and we've always gone to Traffic and Conversion Summit, and so we know a lot of people in the space, and we're really passionate and driven towards helping entrepreneurs understand their business better and use everything that they have in their system to scale and to grow. So we basically are an outsourced team to help companies take the data out of their existing systems. So meaning your CRM, meaning your email service provider, meaning all of your ad places, all of Google Analytics. And we take all of that untouched data and we pull it out, we combine it, and then we turn it into automated dashboards to help you visualize what's going on in the business and help you get more detailed insights into what you should be doing versus what you are doing.
Yep. And I want to take just a quick moment to say, I mean, a big thank you and shout out to you, Mike. I mean, you're a dear friend of ours, but you've also been a mentor of mine for a long time. I wouldn't be who I am if you hadn't influenced me with your marketing prowess and your business acumen. You've been an amazing teacher to me. So thank you for all of that. And that's really helped us. You've been an amazing part of helping our business grow from your ideas to your perspectives, being a client, all of that. So thank you for that.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Very cool. All right. So this is the biggest disaster webinar I've ever started. And this is pretty interesting. So I think my only option here to let you guys share your screen is to make you the host. And okay. I think if I make you the host, you're probably going to have to hit the admit button for people who keep coming in.
Can you make us the co-host?
It doesn't give me that as an option.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
it's just make host. Yeah.
We'll try to keep adding people too.
Yeah.
We'll
deal with it.
To give everybody a heads up, I made the mistake and I made this a regular go-to meeting instead of a webinar. And so everybody joining, just make sure you stop your video and mute your mics and all of that other stuff. And this is just going to be a little chaotic for a bit.
We'll work through it.
Yeah. All right.
Hi, Roger.
All right. I'm going to make you the host.
All right. There we go. Cool.
And I cannot change anyone else's camera settings or anything else like that anymore. So you guys are going to have to handle the presentation and the admission for folks who are waiting too.
Yeah, we can do it all. We live on Zoom all day long. So
okay.
I'm admitting people and then doing this.
Stop video. There you go.
Okay. I've got it managed here. So let's go ahead and get going.
Just hold on. Yeah. Hit admit all. There you go. We can just do that every
couple
minutes.
Thing up. Okay. This is all right. Way easier.
We're all set now. So really today what we're going to be covering is, this is kind of like metrics 101, right? It's the elementary version of what we do because we really want, 90% of what we do is education. Most business owners out there do not understand that what we do is possible. And then once they do understand what's possible, they don't understand that there's really a strategic way for them to, grow through their business, and in terms of what we call, data maturity. So that's what we want to go through today. Is there a way for me?
Yep.
Perfect. So starting off with a funny little quote, big data is like teenage sex. Everybody talks about it. Nobody really knows how to do it. And everyone thinks everybody else is doing it. And so they all claim that they're doing it, right? Big data really in the small business space, everybody thinks that it's reserved for enterprise level clients. And that's true in the fact that enterprise and corporate companies typically understand the value of data. They understand that in order to scale, they have to know what's working and what's not working. That helps them then double down on the things that are working and eliminate the areas of waste in their organization. And that's really how they're able to scale and grow and maintain that enterprise level status. The problem is when you're young in the business, a lot of times you don't necessarily set aside a budget for data because it's really new to the SMB space. Before, it was too expensive and too complicated, honestly, for small businesses to even utilize. But nowadays, everything has gotten simpler, it's gotten faster, and it's gotten cheaper. So that means that big data is now available to everybody here, and it's affordable, and it's something that we can all do. So that's what we really want to introduce everybody here to.
And one of the reasons we start with this is because we want to make data fun. We want to, people whose eyes glaze over when they see spreadsheets and didn't, failed math class, like, we want to take the complex and make it very simple so you can understand the levers you need to pull in your business from data.
Yeah. So basically, we help visionary brands grow exponentially by providing actionable insights from data, because here's the thing, is all the data in the world will never solve your problem. You have to take action from it. And our goal with that is to drive better business decisions, eliminate waste, and increase profits. So you were mentioning, some of the clients that we've worked with in the past. We work with Outdoor Voices, Low & Sons. They do almost $300 million a year out of New York City. Todd Snyder, which is a custom suit company, Case, Onnit, Black Rifle Coffee Company, Organifi. So hopefully you guys understand or know a couple of these names in the industry. But what we're going to cover today is we're going to go through some data stories, because again, not a lot of people are excited about data. And so we want you guys to understand how this can really benefit you guys. And then we'll go through some actionable tips to help you use the data to get better results in your business. And then we're going to go through some 5 must-have desert island metrics. All right, if we could only take 5 metrics and run our business, what would they be? And then really the importance of tracking. A lot of people do not understand that. So we're going to go through that today. And then maybe show you some outputs, right? What can you use data to visualize? And then how can you use it in your business? And then also we will spend most of our time in Q&A, because a lot of this stuff is new for a lot of you guys. And we don't want to, just be continuously talking and talking. We really want you guys to ask these questions, because if you have the question, everybody else does. So there are no such thing as dumb questions here. So we really want you to interact. Feel free to use the chat throughout. And then Mike, if you can just interrupt us if there's anything going on in chat that we need to stop and answer.
Yeah, and you too, Mike. Like you have great feedback. You know a lot of this stuff, and you're able to help pinpoint some of those problems we might gloss over. So feel free to interrupt us. We want to make it as engaging as possible.
Sure.
Sounds awesome.
And you're in the right place. If you're feeling nervous or overwhelmed by data, you don't know where to start, you don't know what to track, and spreadsheets make your eyes glaze over. So
yeah, because a lot of founders got into this business to be creative or to manage people or to inspire. I would say almost every client we've ever worked with did not get in their business to be a data person or to look at spreadsheets, right? It's like the necessary evil. Yeah. And even though there's people like me who exist out there who
loves numbers,
love data, we know that that's not where you guys want to live. So. Yep. All right, go ahead. Let's dive into why data.
So why data? Why is this important? Why are you here? Data just surpassed oil to become one of the most valuable resource on earth, right? And also Harvard study estimates that bad data costs the US economy $4 trillion annually. Data is not going away. Go ahead. Data is not going anywhere. It is going to blow harder. There is more data collected. And this is a really cool graphic. In 2020, how much data was created every single minute? And this is by platform, basically. So you can see, like on Netflix, every minute, 404,444 hours of video. are consumed. On WhatsApp, we got $3,805 spent on mobile apps. Like the numbers are amazing. So it's not big data where it used to be like only reserved for the big enterprise companies. Now big data is everywhere. Data is just available to us all. So,
yeah.
so
if
it's,
you've got Google Analytics on your site, like we've connected to companies that have only done business for a year who had 2 million rows of data just in GA. So this is something that all of your systems that you're using in your business are all tracking behind the scenes and collecting granular pieces of information. And that's what we really want to like distill for you guys is data is not just ones and zeros and random numbers. It's information. And the goal is to turn raw data into information and information into insight. I mean, you think about this, and even in the olden days, I mean, like back in the Roman Empire, you know, if there was a street merchant who understood, you know, the economics of when the ships arrived, when they left, when there were more tourists in port, they could optimize their team, they could optimize their staff, optimize their prices to really dominate the person who just showed up, right? The mom and pop store. And so data's always been the key to having a competitive advantage, but data itself won't solve all of your problems. So I want to show you kind of this model of how you can use data and what's the journey with data. So data, like we talked about, is simply events and outcomes. Can you just move the mouse down there so that people can see? Right. So data is events and outcomes. It can be transactions. It can be what was ordered, when it was ordered, what was the price. It could be, you know, visitors to the site. So it's basically telling you what happened. So that means, in its essence, it's usually historical as well. Yep. Our goal is to turn this into information and understand the underlying relationships between data. So we changed our pricing model and it increased sales by 20%, right? It's the relationship between multiple pieces of data that helps us understand why it happened. Then we go into knowledge, right? Knowledge is understanding the patterns that drive these results. And that actually allows you to then see what will happen, right? Now you're shifting from historical data into being able to predict data, right? Looking into the future and figuring out, predicting what will happen if you pull certain levers. Wisdom is understanding the core principles. It's how can we make certain results happen, right? This is where you get to the point where you're printing money. You understand all of your different KPIs. You understand why things happen, how they happen, and what will happen if you do certain things. And then it's simply scale. This is the point where you scale. But the thing is, all of this is worthless if it just stays in your head. You have to take action, right? If all of this stuff just lives in spreadsheets and nobody's going in and checking it and then using this information to take action, then your business is not going to scale. So really Praxis, the whole reason we chose our name is because there's, you know, Aristotle said that there are three main constructs of man: theoria, which is thinking; poiesis, which is making; but praxis is doing. It's the practical application of wisdom to positively impact your results, right? Again, you have to take action. So that's all conceptual. Let's give you an example of how you guys use this in your day-to-day outside of your business, right? So data.
Real quick, Megan, I just want to make sure, is everybody in the room that's waiting?
Yeah, we've been actively adding them.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
So data is, it is raining outside. That doesn't tell you anything, right? Then going into information is the temperature dropped by 15%. And then it started raining, right? Or 15 degrees. And then next, knowledge is understanding the relationships, right? So it's when humidity is high and temperature drops and the atmosphere will not be able to hold a moisture, and so it will rain, right? Then we get into wisdom. So again, we were talking about the past versus the future, and understanding all interactions between evaporation, temperature changes, air currents, and really being able to predict rain next week, right? Everybody gives the weatherman such guff, right? But truly, it's difficult to understand and predict things in the future. But once you're able to, then it can really have a positive result on your life, right? So the action that you would take from this is being able to pack an umbrella and boots for your vacation next week in order to stay dry, right? Being prepared and being able to capitalize on what is going to happen.
So hopefully that's a simple enough example of how to think about data. Hopefully that makes sense.
Hopefully that resonates.
Yeah.
So really taking action from your data is the new competitive advantage. Right now, especially since COVID, everything is online,
Yep.
right? And that is creating more and more data. Oh, sorry, Mike, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Okay. So that's creating more and more data, and it's creating more and more competitors,
Yep.
right? So everybody's getting into the e-commerce game. We talk to companies every day that were retail only, and now they're shifting to online. So what's happening is it's creating this new competitive ecosystem in the marketplace, and you have to understand what your clients are searching for, where they're finding you, and how they're finding you, and what's the best price to offer. Otherwise, your competitors might be analyzing this data, understanding your clientele better, and then they're meeting your clients where they are, and they will cannibalize your entire business.
Yep.
Right?
No longer being creative and having a great product by itself is going to last. Yeah, you may have that nice spike up in the beginning, but what we see time and time again is brands coming to us saying, look, we hit $1 million, we're crushing, but we don't know what we're doing now. And they hit this cap. And the data is it's because they have not organized their data, and they haven't started, they either don't know their costs, which we're going to talk about. They don't know some of these pieces of information that are absolutely critical to beating out their competition, and then they're getting crushed.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is people, and I'm sure most people here are doing this, it's, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yep.
Right? You're launching 27 new, paid media campaigns to try things out. And then you're not going back to the data to see what's working, right? There's so many people who say that they're data driven, and yet ego kind of gets in the way too, right? Because none of us want to admit when we're wrong, but learning from the data is the key to scaling and growth, right? Split testing is a huge advantage. Understanding and trying out different things is great, but you have to cut early and often in order to really double down on what's working, right? Imagine all of your wasted efforts, all of your wasted time, and all of your wasted money when you look back at your business and how you've scaled to this point. Imagine if you knew what you know now, and you knew that, 75% of the way ago, right? If you were able to catch these things before it spiraled, you would be optimizing your revenue, optimizing your profits along the way. And that's really the difference between companies that aren't using their data and the ones that are, right?
Which is a great segue over to we've got these 3 data stories that we want to tell. So Danette May, as a client of, as a client, go ahead, you take over, is a client of ours. And they came to us because they had a funnel that they built, a product funnel that was working on retargeting on Facebook, but they couldn't get it to convert to cold traffic at all. And so they came to us and said, look, we think we know our lifetime value of a customer, but we're not quite sure. So our team went in and fixed all their tracking and went through everything to find their true lifetime value of a customer.
And the reason that mattered is because they were spending more to acquire customers on the front end. And so their customer acquisition cost was pretty high, but they thought that they were making money from this, but in the first sale, they weren't. They were barely breaking even. And so they were like, well, I think these clients are coming back and getting affiliate offers, coming back and purchasing other products. So they're like, if that's actually happening, then this funnel is a success. But if not, then we're losing money because we're spending more to acquire them than they're spending with us in their first product order.
Yeah, and as many of you may or may not know, creating a funnel is a very time and money heavy resource. So they wanted to really get this dialed in. So what we found is that they were actually, their lifetime value was about $20 higher than what they thought. So they thought there was a ceiling was here. Their ceiling was up here. So all they did was simply change their cost per acquisition, or their cost per click, CPC, $5 increased. With the amount of volume that they were doing, within 2 weeks, they went from 15 sales a day, and here's a little chart, 15 sales a day, to within 2 weeks, 350 sales per day on the same funnel. Nothing else changed. Then it went all the way up to 650 around there, and then it kind of flattened off after that. We're talking about millions of dollars, actually, at the end of the day, with this one funnel that they almost cut completely because they didn't understand their true lifetime value.
So hopefully that paints a picture as to, data is not just, to sit there on the back end. Data is meant to take action from, and it will yield results every single time if you're analyzing right.
Yeah.
So another example is, I know this probably isn't relatable for everybody here, but we worked with a client who had a $40 million yogurt crisis, and they were able to solve this with data. So they had these contracts with all of these vendors and suppliers, and they were getting shipments of all these different products. And about a quarter of the way through the year, they had to throw out $40 million of yogurt that had gone bad. And they had this ongoing contract with this vendor that they couldn't get out of. And they wanted to understand why they were throwing out so much yogurt. So one of the things that we were able to do now, and this is a little bit more advanced, but we wanted to show you how data really is bigger than you think. When we think about our data as a business owner, you typically think about your financial data, your customer data, your, marketing data. But one thing that a lot of us don't think about is public data. There is so much data out there that you're able to, loop in for free or paid. One of those big things is weather data. So think about milk products. When it is hot outside, do you really want really cold yogurt? Not really. It's, milk is a bad choice.
Milk was a bad choice.
And then same thing in winter, you don't want cold yogurt. And so there's really this peak of consumer behavior around yogurt that peaks in spring and fall. And the problem was they had just averaged out their sales for the year and then had consistent delivery of this yogurt throughout the year. And so the problem was they weren't staggering this to match the demand. And so as soon as we were able to overlay the weather data with the consumer behavior, we were able to then understand and optimize their vendor relationships to ship the yogurt in times of need, and then to not do it in times of when people didn't want it. And they were able to save millions of dollars a year. On that similar thread, we have a client, it's a service company, and they are rodent control, right? Pest control. And one of the things that they were doing is they were spending ads, and they're nationwide. They were spending money on ads all across the nation consistently. And then we were able, again, to loop in public temperature data that's totally free. And we were able to see that at 71 degrees, when they were running ads for bats, or at 60 degrees when they were running ads for, rat control, right? Each rodent has these different temperatures where they're more active. So what we did is we overlaid temperature data, and then they changed their ad spend so that they'd cut it entirely under certain degrees and then triple it as soon as there was a degree change, because that's when they know that rodents are more active. And they saw a 312% increase in ROAS just by doing that. We've done the same type.
Spend, by the way.
Return on ad spend.
Yeah. What did I say? Oh, yes.
ROAS,
sorry. Yeah, return on ad spend. And so here's the thing is this works in all sorts of different businesses. If you're in coffee business, right? If you're in any sort of food business, if you're in any sort of clothing business, right? It's understanding that we are not the controllers of everything that impacts your business. You as the business owner, right? You can control certain things, but there's things in the marketplace that are also impacting you, such as COVID, right? Yeah. One of the big things that we're doing nowadays is we're overlaying all of the ad spend, all of the consumer buying behavior with maps of the United States and the world based on which counties are in lockdown, which counties have, higher COVID counts. And that's now allowing people to see, well, geez, there's a pattern and a correlation when, there's a county that has more COVID cases, we actually have a 10x ROAS or return on ad spend. So we're going to double it in those areas, right? And it's just utilizing data to really make smarter business decisions so that you're not just wasting money, you're doubling down on the things that work.
Yeah, and those are just a couple of example. There's so many other data sets out there, but hopefully that was impactful.
Yeah.
We've got
great.
one bonus story.
Yeah.
Is that good, Mike?
Yeah.
Isn't that pretty cool?
So here's the last one.
This hits close to home when we're just being very transparent. It's one of our number one values. So we, at the end of each year, also more than once a year, in 2019, we had to look at our business under a microscope, and Meg and I got together and had to look at all the data. We spent days sifting through. We're working really hard in our agency. We're increasing our clients, but our profit margin was staying low. What's going on here?
Yeah, at the end of 2018, like a lot of companies out there, like we were small business owners and we were like, we're getting like 1% profit margin. We're not paying ourselves. Do we want to do this anymore? And what are the key levers that we could pull to make this business successful? And so we spent a good several days in our own data and we realized, you know, that the cobbler's kid has no shoes, right? We hadn't been leveraging these insights for our own company. And so what we found is, you know, like most small businesses, especially in agencies, we were giving away so much. We just were super passionate about making an impact. And so we were
in that startup, because we went from a marketing company to data and we're transitioning, but we were there because we really care and we wanted to drive impact. So we were, like many agencies, over delivering and not billing for a certain time, right? And so as we continue to grow, what we didn't check ourselves on was billable hours versus non-billable hours.
So why
were these things getting out of control? And who were the people on the team that were doing this? Not just us, but other team members.
Yeah. So we implemented this one KPI, shared it across the entire company and said, this is the one KPI that we are now focused on. And that is, you know, percentage of billable hours to non-billable hours. And at the time we were at over 65% non-billable. And we said, okay, each month our goal is to get that 50% less and 50% less. So we implemented that in December. By January, we were under 30%. By February, we were under 10%. And by March, we had 0 non-billable hours. And we thought that it was going to cost us clients. We thought it was going to cost us relationships, but our clients knew that we were a business and they had no problem paying it. And so within 3 months, we had a 400% increase in our revenue and 30% increase in profitability. And it was all because of one key metric that we not only tracked, we took action off of, and then we democratized it or shared it with the entire team so that we had an organized focus on this and that everybody was working towards changing this metric. So our big question to you guys is, what if you were one data-driven decision away from exponential growth?
We really believe this. We really believe that every company has one guiding metric that if they were to track, analyze, and take action on, it could really change everything. And so we're proof of that, and so are our other clients.
And here's the thing is that changes and evolves over time as your business changes and evolves over time. We're not the same business we were 18 months ago. And so we're consistently going back, looking at our company and saying, what else? What is that next KPI that we need to be focused on in order to hit this next scaling growth? Cool. So that brings us
stories. We went through our stories, which is great. Now it's setting up what we call the data maturity spectrum. So you want to jump in?
Yeah. So here's the thing is we've worked with over 150 brands. So what we found are these patterns and these stages that companies go through. Now we have revenue up here, but do not get caught up in the revenue, because we've worked with companies doing over 65 billion in annual revenue that were in this startup phase. So do not let the revenue numbers, startle you. Here's the thing is you have to start at the left side of the spectrum and move your way up. So no matter what size company starts working with us, we go through this checklist and we say, okay, have you done these things? If not, this is the foundation that we need in order to go to the next stage. So the first foundational piece of your data maturity spectrum is data collection. We cannot analyze and we cannot take action if there is no data to analyze. So you have to have things like your system set up correctly to collect the data. Now, luckily, we live in the 21st century and most of our systems are set up to track aspects of the company. So like QuickBooks, your ESP, your CRM, all of these tools are naturally tracking on the back end. The problem is a lot of people assume that they can just plug and play and that all these systems will just do the magic for you. The problem is that every company that we've ever worked with is terminally unique. You might use the same systems, but your naming conventions are different. Your SOPs, your like standard operating procedures are different. Your chart of accounts in QuickBooks will be different, right? And so data collection is not just setting it and forgetting it. It's looking at your systems and seeing, am I tracking all of these things that are going to tell a story?
Right. And unfortunately, the platforms are trying to get as many users as possible. So they build only what they know. And I say this respectfully, they're programming nerds that are thinking like a nerd, not like a business person or not like your business. So what they create doesn't necessarily make sense literally in the way that they're coding it. And so that's a whole nother thing we can get into, but this is just about data collection. And the other word we use here is tracking. Right?
Yeah. So tracking, I mean, tracking is the foundation. If you don't have data, you can't use the data. You also have to define what are those important KPIs, which are key performance indicators, right? What are the things that might move the needle for you? And we'll walk you through later on in the presentation, how to determine your top KPIs. We have a system that we've used with all of our clients that helps you reverse engineer your business questions into measurable goals.
Yep. So this is the foundation. This is where it all starts for everybody, no matter what revenue
okay? You're at. But then what happens is you end up using all these systems. None of them talk to each other. None of them integrate seamlessly. You could do some zaps, but sometimes it doesn't work. And so you end up paying somebody on your team to log into each of these systems, extract certain data, and then throw it into a spreadsheet. And then that spreadsheet grows and grows and grows. And next thing you know, it's 27 tabs, 12 of them aren't being used, right? And it's just a mess. And especially for, entrepreneurs who are creative, a lot of you guys don't like looking at spreadsheets, right? And so it's not clean, it's not clear, it's not organized, and sometimes it's not accurate. And so a big problem here is that, number one, it's manual. So you're paying somebody on your team to spend their time in data aggregation or data entry, right?
Data entry.
And then they're being cannibalized from actually doing their job. So this is the entire reason that we got into this agency space, is because we ran a marketing agency and one of our smartest team members was reduced down to report generation for our clients, because we were doing split tests. We'd have to report on those split tests every 3 days to all 27 clients. And then he literally stopped being a marketer and was just typing things into spreadsheets. And I was like, we have to have him back in our organization. So that's what led us to, researching this next stage, which is automation. We live in the 21st century. We have computers to do these things. So there are tools and systems out there to reduce all of this manual effort. And by reducing the manual effort, it gives you not only leverage, but it gives you accuracy and it gives you your team back. So it reduces waste and cost within the organization, because a human's time is always going to be more valuable and more expensive than paying for a software to do something, right? And so it gives you that leverage. And what compound interest is to your money, right? Where it grows and grows and grows and compounds on what's on the interest itself. Automation is to your time, right? If we automate one system in your business, it then compounds and allows you guys to focus your efforts. So now that one human is not focused on data entry, they're now focused on analyzing and taking action from this data. So
actually doing what's in their job description.
Yeah. So go back to the last slide before we move on. So with this, we'll get into this in a minute. The leverage piece and the automation is through this process called ETL, which we'll define later on. And then what this also allows you to do is put your ugly spreadsheets that are all these numbers that don't really tell a story into a visualization, so that you can consume and interpret it better and easier. And then democratize it. So again, share it with your team, because we have too many people that act like dragons in their lair, hoarding their gold with their spreadsheets, right? We'll have team members that have all of this insight and they've done all of this work, but it lives on their hard drive and nobody else sees it. And another problem is they might be running their own numbers, crunching their own things and reporting on something, but they have a different definition or a different calculation than you have. We've worked with organizations where we had 4 different team members all telling us the same KPI, and they had different numbers because somebody was filtering out tax or shipping or whatever it may be. And so you have to be able to share this so that you're all working from the same definitions. And then we go into optimization. So once and in automation, there's tools that you can use that are like pre-built dashboards. They may not be custom to your business, but they are really, really good as a springboard to success to get you those insights and really to help you understand the value of this in your organization. And it's a teaser, right? But naturally, your business is unique. And so you need to have unique KPIs, you need to have unique dashboards and unique calculations. And so this next stage would be building things custom for your organization. We'll skip all the rest of these things because I don't want your eyes to glaze over.
Yep.
And then we go into maximization, which is really, you know, it's kind of data maturity in its fullest. And now here's the problem. Everybody sees this spectrum and they're like, well, I want the revenue of 100 million, or I want the revenue of 10 million. So I'm just going to go and start over there. But none of this stuff works if you start at the right-hand side.
Got to go from left to right. You got to walk before you crawl, before you run. Yeah. And a lot of the stuff that's on LinkedIn, those of you who are looking at the articles and seeing all this on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, there's all these things about machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all these really complicated things. People are saying, this is the future. It's now, you got to get this, or you're going to fall behind.
Then you spend 50 grand on a system. It doesn't work because you don't have data collected accurately. Right. And then you're like,
oh, this doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And then you throw the baby out with the bathwater and you never touch it again. And then it's cannibalizing you from scaling. So again, we, you know, as entrepreneurs, we always want to think ahead, but you have to start with the foundation here. So
I think we drove that home.
Yep.
All right.
All right, now don't glaze over. This is super important. And once I understood this literally made us shift industries.
So how do you get out of spreadsheet hell? How do you get out of doing all that manual work? So ETL 101, 3 steps.
Number 1 is you have all of these systems. The average,
small businesses on average have 18 different pieces of technology, 18 SMBs, right? Yeah. Enterprises even higher, 200 different technologies. So you're probably somewhere in between those two.
Yeah. So you've got all these different systems in place, collecting and aggregating specific aspects of your business, right? But none of them speak seamlessly to each other. So what ETL is just a fancy word for automation. What it allows us to do is extract data from these systems using APIs, which are automatic integrations that allow us to pull out all of the granular data. So think about when you log into Facebook and it gives you that little dashboard and it has these reports in it. That is a fraction of the data that they're collecting. You have access to the backend API, which gives you 10 times that data.
Yep. So another example is Instagram, right? You go to your insights to see how those posts did. There's very, very basic things like, oh, it's helpful. But behind the scenes in the database that we're able to extract from is all the other data that you really actually need.
Yeah. So we extract that all so that you get way more insights. Then we transform it. So transforming it means we join these all together, because if you think about your customer's journey, how many technologies is their data split into, right? They hear about you through an ad, then they follow you on Instagram, then they join your newsletter, so their data's in your ESP. Then they end up purchasing from you, so maybe that's an Infusionsoft. Then they end up going to your Shopify account, and then they purchase there, right? So there's all these different fragments of the customer journey across all these systems, and you can't really tell a whole story when it's fragmented like that. So what we do is we join those together using a special coding to say this one customer ID equals this one, and then it tells that whole story all together. So we've got a customer full journey. And then we load that into a database, because that allows us to query it, which is just asking it questions. We get to ask questions and it responds back with answers really, really fast. And then once we have ETL done, extract, transform, and load, then we layer on analytics. This divided by this is a conversion rate. Yep. This plus this is your lifetime value of your customers, right? So that whole step 2 is where 95% of our time is spent, because it's the part that pieces together the whole story, which is super important. Then the last thing is visualization. Now, this is the easiest and most simple part of this entire formula, because heck, you could take an Excel spreadsheet and visualize parts of it, right? But if you put a visual in and the underlying data doesn't make sense, it's not in the right format, and it's not complete, the visuals are worthless. Yep. So this middle piece is really the key to scaling and growing. But the great news is, if you hate this and you don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, there's tools that do this automatically. And then there's service providers like us that can own this piece of it, so that you just get the output side of things.
So one little warning is there's a lot of platforms out there, a lot of dashboarding tools that promise a lot of stuff, and they say, hey, you just plug in your data, your Facebook, this and that, and then you get these pretty dashboards. They're going from step 1 to step 3. They're skipping this important part. this is the hardest part about it. And if you want vanity metrics, those tools are fine. They're cheap, they're easy. They put everything, they solve the problem of like kind of spreadsheet, how where you don't have to combine it all, but where you run into problems.
Well, and to correct that, they solve the problem of you not having to log into multiple systems.
That's what I meant. Yes.
So it's basically one place where you can see Instagram insights, Facebook insights, Google Analytics insights, right? But they're still siloed pieces of information. They're not joining all of them together to tell the story. They are visualizing the single source of your technologies and in a dashboard, and then they might have 12 different dashboards for the 12 different technologies. So it's helpful in reducing logins, but it doesn't actually tell any more insights because it's only segmenting the data. So there's a lot of visualization tools out there on the market. If you guys have questions on, like which ones are good and which ones we would steer you away from, feel free to reach out to us. Like we do that for free. We'll help point you in the right direction because it's super important. We actually chose the wrong platform
in the beginning.
Yeah, we had to migrate. We had to do all the setup and then migrate again. And it was a pain in the butt because we just didn't understand the difference between a lot of these systems. So
now let's do a quick check-in. Mike, how are we doing? How's everybody doing?
Great, guys.
Are you still awake? Are you all there?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, this is great.
Cool. Are there any questions so far?
Totally geeking out. That's
amazing. Let's save them till the end.
Okay,
because if not, we won't get through your.
Go down the rabbit
Let's do it.
Cool. So lead indicators versus lag indicators. So lag indicators are things like revenue, things that you can't really control. They are the outputs, not the inputs. Lead indicators are things that you can pull the levers to change the outcomes, right? And so when we were asked about, what are our desert island metrics, there's a couple of both. And the reason being, like lag indicators, those results, you still have to measure results in order to find out if what you're doing is working. So starting off with our desert island metrics, everybody, should be tracking revenue, then cost of goods sold, then return on investment or return on ad spend, customer lifetime value, and then allowable cost per acquisition. So obviously revenue is just one of those things we're not going to spend any time on. Like if you don't know your revenue, like that's the starting point.
That's the one thing that all the different tools are collecting.
Actually,
right? That's the biggest
and
one.
they're usually pretty accurate.
They're usually pretty accurate, right? Then we're going to COGS, cost of goods sold.
So obviously revenue is one piece of the equation. Just like we were running an agency, it was making money and then we weren't making money, right? It was all going back into the business and we didn't understand our costs and what was driving all of the lack of profit, right? So COGS is so important. It's not only understanding the cost of goods sold, like the actual raw materials or, the cost to deliver. It's also understanding your overhead and really the true spectrum of your expenses. And then return on ad spend and ROI. This is truly the recipe for scaling because again, like if you're only tracking return on ad spend or ROI, like we had a customer who told us, hey, our key to growth and success is getting a 2x return on ad spend. And then they got there and then they're like, well, but
the bank account said something different.
Yeah. And so they were like, well, even though we're doing 2x on ROAS, we're spending so much on COGS that are in our costs and expenses that now we need 4x revenue or 4x return on ad spend in order to break even.
Yeah.
Right?
Another example is people doing free trials up front or free shipping things, right? So these are very popular. Everybody's kind of doing this or trying these out. And what they think is, oh, great, that customer's going to be, there's kind of two lessons in here. Well, those customers are going to be great. I'm going to ship it to them for free and they're going to buy certain things. Well, that's not always the case. They sometimes just want the free thing and they're not going to buy anything else. But also, those companies don't realize how much that shipping actually costs and what it actually costs to get that out the door. They're like, I can afford to lose a little bit of money up front, but they don't know how much specifically. And those campaigns would bomb. And so they would just end up having to cut those because it lost them too much money.
And so that's why we say here, if you don't have a firm grasp on your costs, then this metric is completely vain because it's all in relation to your costs. You have to know that first before you can calculate this to figure out what the true ROAS should be. All right. Lifetime value and your customer lifetime value, or your customer value.
They're the same thing. Some people say them differently. So same thing.
So Dan Kennedy obviously said,
the business who can afford to spend the most to acquire a new customer wins.
so here's the thing is, just like that story with Danette May, they were able to spend more upfront to acquire their customers because they understood without a shadow of a doubt, the data told this story, that every single one of these clients would come back and spend at least $20 more. So they were able to understand the relationship between revenue, their costs, return on ad spend, and then their lifetime value of their customers. If you can see all of those things, it creates a formula for success and really an algorithm for scaling your business, right? And we're going to get a little bit deeper into this later on because most of your platforms, like if you log into Shopify, it's going to tell you lifetime value of your customers. And it just gives you a static number that's like, oh, your customers are worth $49.
Your average lifetime value.
Yeah. Averages are inherently evil.
Why is that, Megan?
Very strongly passionate about
Very strongly passionate about this.
Averages take your best customers, your highest converting, your like raving fans, and it mashes them together with those people who just
doing an animation.
Oh, okay, sure. It mashes them together with the people who like bought that $1 sample or the trial or the free product. And so it's taking maybe your best customers are spending $500 with you and your worst are spending $1. So the average is $250, right? Yeah. That doesn't help you make decisions. What you want in your business is to understand your best customers, where they came from, what they bought, in what order, so that you can replicate and duplicate that and then cut all of those customers that aren't coming back and purchasing. And that's how you scale, is by doubling down on the things that are working and cutting the things that aren't. So averages are never going to allow you to do that. So you have to get more granular, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Yep. And then the last desert island metric is your allowable cost per acquisition. And this is a reverse engineering metric. You can only understand this if you already have all of those other 4 metrics. Right. So this allows you to then take this formula and say, I can now spend this much to acquire our customers. And then again, it's that formula for printing money.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So those are the 5 desert island metrics that you definitely got to be looking at. And no, this is great. So, right. Like averages inherently evil, but cohorts are really important.
Cohorts are your best friend.
They're your best friend. So it's
and I didn't even know what this word meant when we were in the agency.
Oh, no, we didn't. Literally did not know what this meant. So we're going to define it for you. Cohorts are a group of people banded together or treated as a group, showing results trended out over time. And we're going to show you some right next. Actually, I'll pull that up while you're talking about this. But the 3 most important cohorts are by a customer's first purchase month. Okay, so everybody comes in at different times.
Yeah. Right? So let's pause here. So imagine that you're looking at your lifetime value of your customers, how much they spend with you in their first 30, 60, 90 days. Now, customers who first heard about you a year ago had a very different experience. No business is the same as it was a year ago. You have different marketing campaigns, probably different SKUs, different education series, different nurturing sequences, right? Everything is different. So your customer's journey cannot be compared from customers from a year ago to customers who just closed with you this month, because they have very different access to information. So what you want to do is cohort them out, which is just separate them out. So now you're looking at your lifetime value of a customer who started with you November of last year and ones who started with you this year. And we'll show you how that's visually consumed. And then also by product. If they purchased your $500 product first, naturally their lifetime value is going to be different than the ones who purchased the sample product first, right? And your questions that you ask around those client groups are going to be different, right? The trial sample products, the next logical question is, well, they were worth this much on day 1. What did they buy next? How long did it take them to upsell? And then what did they end up spending over time? Because then if these samples or these trials are working, right? And then also by source, where did they come from? In our business, what's crazy, every business that we've ever worked with is totally different. But if you're able to understand that customers coming in through Facebook might have a high average order value up front, and then they never come back again, versus maybe the customers who come from your Google ads, they are a low average order value up front, but then they come back and they purchase and purchase and purchase and indoctrinate themselves. And then they're worth twice as much as those Facebook clients in 6 months. That's so important to understand. So these are the 3 most important groups of people that you should be analyzing. And this applies to every single one of those metrics that we talked about. So you take your average order value, you take your return on ad spend, and you break it down by these cohorts so that you can see the story in a different way. So let's open this up to show you guys in real time what this looks like. So here's an example of like customer lifetime value. So obviously, you know, knowing that my customers are worth 123 on average is not going to help me. But if I look at customers from last September, I can see that on day 1, they were worth $69. On day 30, they were worth 93. Day 90, 115, or 60, 90, etc. Right? So now I can see within 6 months, they are worth $124, and that's doubling what they were worth on day 1. Right? So that in and of itself is so helpful to understand. But then if you have this cohorted out based on customers' first purchase month, now I can see trends over time. So my first day LTV used to be $69, but all of my changes, all of my efforts in my business have now increased that by over, gosh, like 15% in the last year. And now customers that close with us on average are worth $77 on day 1, right? But the biggest question that we get is, well, geez, by increasing that average order value up front, am I actually cannibalizing what they're going to purchase from me in 30 days? Because I don't want to do that. Like I want to grow every aspect. I want them to continue buying. So here's the way that you see if that's working. Within 30 days, do you see that back in the customers who bought in September of last year were only worth $93, yet customers who just bought from us in July for the first time, they're worth $121. So to answer that question very simply, no, your business is actually doing a great job of increasing the average order value and getting them to purchase more on the back end. And then obviously that goes on for every single cohort of time period, right? So this is what we mean by averages are inherently evil, because you can't tell a story if you're mashing it all together. You're not seeing if our efforts are actually having an impact, if it's not broken down by this, right? And then
you can drag that if you want.
No, it's okay. I'm just going to do this. Like you actually brought up a good point. We have done this so many times for customers where they've actually analyzed the discount codes and how that impacts a client's lifetime value to understand, well, geez, am I actually, again, cannibalizing my own business by offering free shipping? Would they come back and purchase again? Or is it costing me too much? Same thing, like, hey, if I'm doing this big sale, is it getting people to buy more and then they come back later and they're worth more? Or is it just giving them huge discounts and then they never come back? They're just those coupon shoppers, right? And by having this cohorted out by discount codes, you answer that question instantly. I can see here that my average customer who doesn't use a code on their first order is only worth $31. And yet look at all of these other discount codes I'm offering, that doubles their average order value, right? And then look at that. They're actually coming back and repurchasing again. And they're worth more in 90 days than customers who don't use any sort of discount code. So yes, these discount codes work. Without a shadow of a doubt, you now know. And you can see Shroot Bucks, that flatlined. The 126 unique customers that came in and used that code, they came in and they bought once and then they never came back again. So that they were still worth more than our regular customers were in 90 days, but what are we not doing to retarget these customers? What are we not doing to get them to purchase and to understand what else we have in our product line, right? So this gives you an actionable insight. I'm going to go now and I'm going to target the people who use this code, and I'm going to, within 60 days, promote another offer, right? And then you can see this change over time. So don't want to get too, too into the weeds, but one of the greatest ways that this can impact your business, I'm just going to zoom in here. People don't understand that if you just rely on the reports within these individual platforms, you will never have the full story.
Yep.
Facebook pixels will only ever tell you what those customers were worth in their first week, or depending on your attribution window, but it's what they ordered first. Then they become a part of your database and you remarket to them, and they could buy $100 next month, and Facebook doesn't know that. So you're calculating your return on ad spend or your return on investment based on a fraction of the data. So what we want you guys to do is to aggregate this all together and then look at what these customers, where they originally came from, and then what they were worth over time to see if there's any huge insights here. Because we've had clients where, you know, customers were worth a lot lower on the front end by a platform, but they were worth way more on the back end. And they were reallocating their resources to, you know, go to the ones that had a higher initial value, and then didn't realize that they weren't coming back.
Right.
So
I think that's good.
Yeah, it's a lot. I don't want you guys to, you know, like glaze over there. So
how do you determine the rest of your KPIs? So we gave you the 5 desert island metrics. Now we have a process that we've gone through. There you go.
Okay.
It's zoomed in. To help you find out the rest of your KPIs, because obviously those 5 are really needle movers, but there's a lot more to your business.
Pretty foundational. They're pretty elementary.
Yeah.
You guys may have way more unique ones that are needed in your business in order to really scale.
So the process we use, Richard just joining us, the process we use is called metrics mapping. And it's the pathway that we get to find the 20%. And this is about Pareto's principle. Many of you have probably heard about this. We're not going to spend too much time, but it's the key to scaling. The key to scaling is figuring out 20% of your business that's driving 80% of the results, and then double, tripling, and quadrupling down on that. So the question though becomes, how do you find out what those 20% metrics are? And this is it.
Ta-da, metrics mapping. So
from top to bottom.
If you can't read this, that's okay. Like, we'll send you either the slides and give you access to it, because this is a process that has been developed over 150 different clients. So this works no matter the industry, no matter what's unique to your business. First things first is you have to have clearly articulated business goals so that we can reverse engineer those, right? So we take your business goals. It could be 4, it could be 20, right? And then we say, okay, what questions are you asking that you're either A, not getting answers to, or that B, you ask your team and it takes so long for them to go and manually answer those that, you know, in 2 weeks, if you ask that question again, they have to go rerun those reports, right? So we reverse engineer the goals into questions that you need answers to in order to impact those goals.
Right.
Then we take those questions and we turn them into individual KPIs. These are things that you can measure and that can potentially be automated, right? So this is how we determine what those metrics are. And then
this is all where this blue section is where we're going, because this is a journey together. So this is all about where we headed and how do we get there. This part down here
is more nerdy. Yeah. It's more nerdy, and we'll skip through this real quick. But basically, each of those metrics, you basically have to say, if I were to run this report from scratch, where would I log into? What are the different technologies that are storing pieces of this information? Like, you know, customer journey is spread across 12 different, technologies.
Yeah, is it Google Analytics, Shopify, Klaviyo, like potentially having to build something unique to pull that data out. Where does it live and where's it going to come from? Then detailed data sources, define formulas and filters, which is date ranges, algorithms, categories, and then finally that visualization layer that allows you to digest the information. So this is a much longer conversation.
So once you have your questions, right, and you know what you're trying to get answers to, and you've articulated that into the form of a KPI, this process will help you prioritize, because everything is not of equal value. And so what we do first is this wish list that you created from metrics mapping might have 100 different KPIs, and that's okay. It could be 10 per department. It could be 30 per department, right? And then what we do is we say, how valuable is this to your organization? Is this going to move the needle, or is this a nice to know versus a need to know? Mm-hmm. So we rank those, and then we rank it based on feasibility, right? If you're not able to pull this manually, because the data doesn't exist, it's not being tracked, or it's not accurate, then it's a low feasibility, versus if it's like, oh yeah, we can pull this and we've done it before, it's in a spreadsheet, it's just annoying to do it manually, then it's high feasibility, right? So priority 1 KPIs will always be the ones that are high value to you and that are also possible right now. Yep. Sometimes you're missing an entire technology, right? Like we've got clients that they're like their system that they used for sending out emails doesn't give them this one, custom field. And so they end up switching in order to gather that and in order to have the data. So these are all priority 1. And these are the ones that then would be automated and prioritized in your dashboard or even in your manual reports. Priority 2 ones are ones that are on your roadmap, meaning they are super high valuable. If you had these answers, it would change your business, but it's not possible right now. So we basically divvy efforts and we say, all right, your team should work on reporting all the priority 1 efforts. And then there should be a different team working on feasibility of these priority 2 ones, implementing new custom fields, implementing better, standard operating procedures, implementing naming conventions so that you can organize things better, right? And as they're working on these priority 2 KPIs, eventually each one of these will become more and more and more feasible. And then they cross this event horizon of feasibility, and then you can automate or visualize or report on those KPIs. And then obviously priority 3 ones are ones that it's easy to do, but man, it's not that valuable. This is vanity metrics. Do not run your business off of vanity metrics. Just because you can doesn't mean you should be looking at it. I mean, like there's such thing as paralysis by analysis. You do not want to overwhelm your team if it's stuff that's not going to help you. Like if it's not a need to know, don't do it. And then especially if it's like not valuable and it's super hard to get, screw it. Like it's not worth the effort. So obviously this should be your first priority. So how are we doing on timing?
Yeah, we're at an hour.
Cool.
So Mike, when do you want to start Q&A?
Whenever, how much more do y'all have on the presentation here?
Not that much
just
more.
UTMs.
Like just UTMs and tracking.
I think honestly, I think that could be a whole different presentation, honestly.
Okay.
It definitely can be.
Yeah.
Definitely can be.
I think let's actually do that. Let's save that for another presentation.
Perfect.
No problem. That's great.
Yeah.
Then
awesome.
we'll just recap right now.
Yep.
Cool.
Awesome. Well,
So basically, what you guys need to do in order to scale is figure out the 20% of your efforts that are driving 80% of your results. Track your most important KPIs, especially by cohorts. And those would be revenue, cost of goods sold, return on investment, return on ad spend, lifetime value of your customers, and your allowable cost per acquisition. Go ahead.
Clearly identify your critical business questions. Write them down. Set up tracking. We didn't get into this, but we'll do this next time. Set up tracking and properly use organized UTMs consistently. Don't worry if you don't know what that term is, but set up your tracking and make sure the softwares you're using right now are being utilized to the fullest. Automating your reports, right? Getting out of spreadsheet hell and getting as much as you can. Even if it's one tool at a time, that's okay. One step at a time is fine. And then lastly, data alone isn't enough. You need to take action to get a competitive advantage. So I think that sums us up.
Yeah, actually, well, there's basically 2 stages, right? Remember the data maturity spectrum? You're either in the data collection phase where you need more information and you need it tracking properly, or you're getting out of spreadsheet hell and you need automation, right? So with either of those, like we'd love to help. Like with the data collection piece, we've got a whole course on how to track properly, how to set up your systems to track properly. And then when you're, dabbling into automation, we'll point you in the right direction and let you know what tools to use, because we don't want you to have to go through what we went through where it was trial and error and lost resources, lost time, lost efforts. So that's really what our hope is that, you guys will leverage us. We love helping people, and we're genuinely passionate about helping you scale and learning from our experience and the experience of our other clients.
Yeah, well said.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This is such an important topic today as we're moving into the digital world. And I really liked the part that you said at the beginning where data is the most valuable resource in the world today. And it is. And there's literally countries kind of in a Cold War over data, meaning the United States and China. That's what TikTok is about, and why the US government is wanting to ban TikTok, because China is pulling all of that data in, plugging it into their API or into their AI systems. And they're gathering more intel about the United States than has ever been possible just from a cell phone app, right? So imagine the value of that data to you and your business. But I think, at least for me, if you're a creative type, you look at data and you just don't know what to do with it. It gets intimidating, even though you know you need to do it. And you really need someone to help set it up. And that's where you guys come in, which has been awesome. Yeah. So if you want to build a real lasting business here, guys, this is the difference between finding an offer that you can sell for a few years that might make you $1 million, but it's eventually going to tail off. And if you don't have data in place to tell you why, to give you a picture and a map of what's happening and why it's happening, then you're done. You might be able to get up to a couple $1 million a year, but if you don't have data in place, you're not going to be able to send, here's what's working, and then stack the next level on top of it to scale your business. And so this is the difference between a hobby, in my opinion, and a real company that has the potential to grow over a long period of time. So very, very important stuff.
And the other, I just want to add on to that. Like, there's a lot of people that love to do launches, but like you're saying, like you just have to keep launching stuff again and again, which is a lot of work. Like, yeah, you might hit that $1 million, $2 million launch, which is still very hard to do. But if you just learn some of these basics on the data, this is the long game. You can be in it, take that same effort and let it pay you a lot more money over time.
Yeah, absolutely. So questions and answers, everybody, type them into the chat.
Cool. And we'll go through some of the ones that have already been asked.
Yep.
Somebody asked us to clarify how they use the extra $5 in CAC in the first example.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So let's, because we went through that pretty quick. So basically, let's say that the clients or like the company knows that all of their ads cost them $15, for an acquisition, and the customer comes in and buys $20 worth of product. Let's say that, they have really low costs. So they have $3 worth of costs. So they're making $2 on every sale, which is super low, but let's just say that for a number's sake. Once we found out, and once the client understood that those clients weren't worth $20, every single one of them was actually worth $40, because within the next 30 days, they came back and bought multiple products. That customer, now we have the customer acquisition cost of $15, the costs of those $3. And now instead of the profit being the $2, now you've got profit on the next $20 as well. So they were able to increase their allowable cost per acquisition from $15 to $20, which in all rights would have been a bad business move, because it would have been like lacking of profit. But they were able to increase that, knowing without a shadow of a doubt that they were going to get the profit within the next 30 to 60 days. And it was able to scale. So now instead of them having a 1% profit, right, or a 10% profit, now they know that they're getting 20% profit on the back end. They were able to spend more to acquire the customer, but they guaranteed themselves a 20% profit within 60 days. And then it's just printing money. They literally just say, I can spend this much per day. I'm going to raise my spend from 10,000 to 20,000 a day. And I know that within 30 to 60 days, it's just going to skyrocket my profits. And that's it. And hopefully that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any more questions? You guys are being shy tonight.
Let's see. There was another one on, what's the investment that you need in order to take action now? And it really depends on where you are in the maturity spectrum, right? If you're a startup, there is no reason for you to be investing in true business intelligence dashboards, right? You can start with spreadsheets. Like, everybody has to go through that because it helps you understand where the holes are in your tracking and what KPIs are important to you. So if you're a startup and you just need tracking help and you need us to help you with Google Analytics, your attribution reporting, things like that, we have education products that are as low as $600, and that walks you through everything you need to do and your team can go and do without even hiring us to do any services. So the answer to your question is, the lowest would be $600. You can also hire us to do the work for you, which would be about $1,500 for the tracking side of things. And then when you get into the dashboards, it really depends, because if you have 20 different systems or if you have 200, that's a very different amount of workload. And so that's something that we can chat offline about if that's something that anybody needs.
Yeah, and just to give you guys perspective of what you're talking about when you say you can build a custom dashboard for a company, it means you can build a single place where anybody, their business owner, can log in and have every single important metric in their business in one place where you log in. So let's just say maybe you're on Shopify for your shopping cart, Active Campaign for your email. You've got Google Analytics data. You've got your Facebook ad campaign data. You've got your YouTube ad campaign data. You've got your social media metrics from Twitter and everywhere else. And then you've got your podcast data. You have to go in and log into every one of those platforms and just try to figure out the piece of the puzzle. So what you guys can essentially do is plug in automatically to all of those platforms, pull in the data, and then put them into dashboards that actually make sense.
Yep.
So you can see how much did our audience grow by today, how much revenue did we make, how much was our ad spend, and you can just start to see everything in one single login, and just see how your business is doing every single day and what's happening and what's working, what isn't working. So that to me is amazing, and that's essentially what you guys do for companies.
Yep.
Yep,
That's exactly.
exactly. And then to answer the question by Derek Reed. Now, Derek, I know you came in a little bit late, but basically every single platform that you are using is collecting data on the back end. So we gave an example of a client who just started up. They're less than a year into their business and they still have 2 million rows of data in Google Analytics, right? And you think about every single transaction you have, that's probably multiple rows of data because each transaction might have multiple products, right? And so there's a ton of data tracking in every single one of your systems. So we really don't have a minimum. I'd say, we've even worked with companies that were pre-revenue because they understood that they needed to ask specific questions and that as soon as they launched, they would want those questions answered. So there's really no minimum, I would say, because there's so much data that's tracking from day one. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
Good.
Setting up the foundation, that data collection side is super important. So if you're pre-revenue or just in the beginning, we love that because then we can help create the habits that you need now so that you don't have to go back after 2 or 3 years and untangle all the knots and go backwards historically. It's so much easier. We believe in really reducing the waste.
There's straight up clients that we've worked with that have been in business for like 10 years and they're doing multiple millions. And then we have to go all the way back to stage one with data collection. And it's like, the analogy I always give is it's like they've been, pulling this boat and they have fishing lines off the back and they've had those fishing lines off the back for 10 years. So they're all knotted and discombobulated and all a mess. And then we have to go in and we have to one at a time, like untangle this huge knot of fishing lines. And that's kind of what it is, like cleaning up bad data. It's possible. It's totally doable. We do it all the time. But when you're young and when you're fresh, it's so easy to start from scratch. It's kind of like renovating a house versus building from scratch. You always want to start with the foundation in place because as you grow and scale, you will get more complex. There'll be more systems, more naming conventions, and it just gets the awkwardness or like the propensity to have dirty data more as you scale becomes higher. And so it's important to start with this foundation, even at the very beginning. Yeah. And then also Peter asked, do you have APIs to suck data from ERPs? Heck yes. ERPs are such a, they're just a wellspring of knowledge and information.
What is that, folks?
Oh, I'm sorry. Now I'm blanking on it. Enterprise, I don't even know. So an ERP basically is a platform that collects all of the financial data. It has all of the inventory data, all of the supply chain. You can basically enterprise resource planning. Thank you.
Nice
Peter.
job, Peter.
I knew it was something like so it basically the ERP becomes the hub for most businesses once they get to a specific point. Mm-hmm. So it's got a lot of data already in there, which is fantastic, but every single ERP on the planet has terrible reporting. It's the worst. They have siloed reports that are all in the form of just spreadsheets. And so what we'll do is, a lot of our clients that already have an ERP, they usually have had to create these custom reports within the platform, which is 50% of our job. And so our job becomes much easier because then we can take these clean static reports or I guess they're not static, they update automatically, but then we can turn those into visuals and then do data science around them and get way more granular, and we can cohort things out and it becomes really fun. And it's almost like a faster timeline because ERPs are so vast and they already have a lot of this data already in there, and it's already clean most of the time because people invest a lot into their ERPs. So yes, pretty much every ERP has an API. We connect into that, and then we can even connect into the granular reports that already exist and not have to recreate from scratch.
Yep. Jay, thank you for the post there as well. And we just got another great question here from Hema. I'll let you read that one, but we can definitely show an example of this.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll read it out
Yeah.
loud.
Cause we chatted almost a year ago, I think it was. And she was just getting leads in the form or from affiliate sources. Now she runs Facebook ads. She pays for traffic via CPL media buys. And so her question is, how well do your dashboards help us see both the individual ROI of each of our sources, as well as the aggregate ROI for the business? Ooh, I love this.
Great question.
And can this information then help answer not only how much to spend to acquire leads, but also how many leads are needed to sell X, Y, or Z product?
Great question.
Boom. Yes, 100%. You are thinking about this in the exact right way. These are the types of answers that will actually move your business. So let's just pull up paid media, the next one.
Yep. Here you go.
All right, so here's an example, and this is solely showing paid media. However, this is something that we can do and loop in all of the affiliates, and I'll show you an affiliate dashboard in a minute. So we've got all of these KPIs. So this is pulling from every single platform, okay? So it's aggregating all of these together, giving you an executive pulse of month over month versus week over week, going into, detailed KPIs, helping you understand the ad performance. And so what we've done here in this top section is this is an aggregate of every single campaign that you're running on every single platform. So you can splice it and dice it to each platform. But like you said, you want to see an overarching return on ad spend or an overarching spend, revenue, ROAS. And so what we've done here is we've combined that all together so your core KPIs around advertising are all answered from the roll-up level. So as a company, my company has a 48.2 return on ad spend. We have a customer acquisition cost of 1.8. I mean, this is a great business, obviously. And then a click-through rate of 3.1, 2.5 million clicks, right? And I can see all of these trended out over time. I can drill into any of these, but here's my roll-up of my entire business. And then what I can do is I can also just drill in and say, well, now I only want to see Google because I'm meeting with that agency that's only running Google ads. And so now I've got all of these same KPIs, but now I've got it filtered down to just that platform, right? Oh, and of course I clicked on the one that doesn't have any ads. But we also have down below, grouped down here. I'll actually stay up here and just wait. So here. So now I've got it filtered to only, let's do Facebook. So now I saw that I had a 46.8 return on ad spend overarching in my entire business, but Facebook is yielding a 1.0 ROAS. Right there, it's a huge insight to understand, how much are we spending on Facebook? We spent $777,000 for a 1.0 ROAS. If I could take half of that spend and reallocate it to the platform with the highest ROAS, guess what? We're going to scale, right? It's just a simple formula. So to answer your question, yes. And then, nice. Yeah, we chatted a while ago, so I'm glad that you've learned from your experience and started valuing data. So then going deeper, you can even break down into individual campaigns and see, okay, which campaigns are yielding these highest ROAS, and this can be cross-platform. Well, I already filtered it to Facebook, so I will unfilter it and do all. But you could instantly compare every single campaign that you're running with all of these core KPIs. So that you could say, hey, well, I ran this on, Instagram, but I should also run it on, Facebook or on our Google ads because it was really valuable. And then going into the second part of your question, I think I'll pull up a different dashboard around affiliates, but let me just go into, well, I'm going to skip over attribution, but right here is agency performances. So a lot of our clients end up hiring multiple agencies and they want to compare them. And so we could even set those up because usually they have some sort of naming convention or platform delineation where you could compare those different agencies, because I know a lot of our teams are hiring different ones.
Yep.
So now let me go into.
While you're pulling that up, Martin also commented and said, and you have to double check your Facebook pixel data as many times as the tracking data is incorrect when you cross-reference that with your cart data. Yes, you were right.
Oh, well, actually, before I change screens then, let me just show you. every single client that we work with has that
There you
problem.
go.
It's called over attribution. Okay. Over attribution is a systemic problem, but it is not, it shouldn't yield, how do I say this? It shouldn't yield lack of integrity with your data. You just have to understand how things work. It's Bing, Facebook, Google, all of these ad platforms will only ever see what you set up them to see, and they don't talk to each other, right? So if a customer comes in, and in my client journey, I have 4 separate touch points where I see 4 different ads, retargeting campaigns, I'm on different platforms. And let's say I went to Google, Facebook, Bing, and Pinterest, because I'm a psychopath who has Bing and Google. Anyway, then all 4 of them would attribute my $100 spent with each of them. So even though one consumer gave you $100, I have 4 platforms saying they're each responsible for $100 and telling me that I made $400 instead of 100, right? So here what we've done is we've connected into each of these platforms. We have looped in the data from not only the ad reported revenue, like what they're attributing their sales to be, but also to your true revenue. So we can compare it with Infusionsoft, Shopify, Amazon, whatever platform you're using to collect revenue. And we can see, well, geez, this campaign, they said that they yielded $18,000 worth of sales, but I didn't collect any money from this. Nope. So why is this tracking broken? And that's over attributing, right? So now I can see that Google is over reporting by 450,000%, right? So obviously you can't trust that data, right? But there is a systemic way for you to go through and fix this. You can go through, and this becomes, again, an actionable insight. Your team goes through and audits this, make sure that your tracking is set up through your reporting system and that it's linked back, that this isn't just a breakage in your reporting, right? Because what if this was responsible for $2,800 and I just didn't have this tracking set up, and so all of the pixels or all the UTMs or all of the tracking is breaking the source data from the transaction data, right? So your team goes through, audits these things, make sure that it's tracking accurately, and then you can get to the point where you're now able to see this variance over time. And every time you go in and fix these campaigns and you're reporting, you become closer and closer and closer to being more accurate. So here you can see over time, well, geez, in March, we had a 300% revenue variance between our platforms, 300,000, sorry. So it was so far off, we couldn't trust any of it. And so we weren't logging in to see these things. And yet we went in April and we cleaned up a bunch of these campaigns. We fixed a bunch of the tracking and we got it only to 34,000% off, woohoo! And then now over time, I guess our teams just kind of slacked off and they're not doing a great job with tracking. And so now we're back down again. So you do these audits and you assign this KPI to one person on your team. And you're like, your job is to get this down to less than 50,000. And your goal is to get that done by next month, right? And you set these goals, these attainable responsibilities within the organization. And over time, you get better and better tracking, better and better insights, and more accuracy in your reporting. And we've gotten clients that literally had trajectories like this, and now they're down to less than 10% variance between the ad reporting revenue and the platform reporting revenue, right? And now they're able to use their systems.
Yep.
So great question there.
Question. No, you're going to finish up Hima's other question, I think.
Yeah, I'm just going to not share because I need to find this dashboard first. So as I'm looking for this, Mike, are there any other questions that we haven't gotten to yet?
Not at the moment. If you guys have any final questions, let them know. Real quick, I'll just say, if somebody wants to work with you guys, either to just buy your course or to hire you to do this for them, what's the best way to get in touch with y'all?
Yeah, great. And I'll
you can talk through that.
Yeah, I can do. So if you're on the left-hand side and you're the data collection, you can go to praxismetrics.com/revenue. So we just created a landing page, and this is the usual landing page, but we're practicing what we preach. This will show that everybody that came from this webinar. And so there's a bundle, this 10X tracking bundle of all the top courses that we put together that were only available previously to clients. So now we've made it public facing and made it really, really affordable. So you go through, you get an analytics audit, you get the advanced tracking, you get the UTM, and you get basic Google Analytics. And this is all done for creatives and business owners or teams that aren't super technical. So we walk you through very simple step-by-step systems. So you can get that at praxismetrics.com/revenue. And I can put the link in the chat here in a second when Megan's done. And then the other way is if you want to get on a call, like Megan and I said, we are here to help. Our team is here to help. So we have like a 60-minute free data strategy session that you can take advantage of. And you can go to praxismetrics.com and click on the top green button. And you just fill out a few questions, and then it schedules a call with Chad or Megan or I, depends on who comes through on the round robin. And then we'll get on a call and help you walk through this, help you build a mini data or a mini data roadmap for your business, and help you prioritize those things that need to be first. And then we figure out if it's a good match for us to work together. So really those are the two things that are best. There's also at praxismetrics.com, we have a great blog, a lot of really great information there. And also my Data Rich podcast, our Data Rich show is going to be launching here in a few weeks with some awesome content and interviews. So a lot of great sources. Thanks for asking.
Sweet.
Mike.
Awesome.
Well, I'm going to share one last thing because I know a lot of people here do affiliate stuff.
Yep.
All right.
Shared the whole screen. That's all right.
Yeah, I'm good. All right. So this obviously is dummy data. But this is the kind of stuff, and this is very simplified, but to show you, like, you can have all of your affiliate data, and it depends on your affiliate relationship and how much data they give you. But we can go and as granular as you want and get clicks, orders, the conversion rate, the average ticket amount, the upsell take rates, upsell conversion of 1 versus 2 versus 3, right? So you can see your entire customer's journey by each affiliate. We also have things where it's like, hey, you can look at like, instead of, manually calculating affiliate payouts, looking at, what they actually sold, when they sold it, how much you owe to them, right? And then look at it over time so that you can see exactly what's working and how much of your business is coming from this. So there are so many different ways that we can automate a lot of your manual reporting around the source data to really get you these granular insights.
Done?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Last call.
One last question.
Yep.
So Edward said, I get that if you start collecting all of this data from the beginning, it's much easier. But when you're just starting out and don't have any money coming in yet, where do you start? The basic stuff is Google Analytics, because Google Analytics is a free tool and it can collect so much data, and it's usually around traffic and conversion, which is, at the beginning, such a foundational piece. And so we would hands down recommend, if you're pre-revenue, don't have money to spend your time and your money in getting Google Analytics correct. And there's a lot of free courses out there. You don't even have to go to our paid course. You can go to Udemy, or I guess Udemy's paid. You can even go on YouTube. You can go on Google Analytics and look through all of their resources. So if you don't want to spend any money on your data yet, spend your time and go and research these things to make sure that you're setting up your data accurately in Google Analytics, because that will be a foundational piece.
Yep.
And then with every other technology you're using, watch their videos, talk to their sales reps, talk to their support, and see how you can set this up in the most optimal way to collect as much as possible. And that will be your best friend in the future.
And I'm just going to add on to that what we didn't cover today, which, Mike, we can do on another one, the UTMs. Utilizing UTMs on every single marketing activity that you are a part of is going to help you in the short term and in the long term. So setting up Google Analytics, one of the most underused and free tools that are out there, doing it right. And then also utilizing UTMs are like the basics.
For sure.
But just FYI, we'll come back and do a second training whenever you guys are up for it on that.
Cool.
But the course that you just shared and we put a link to covers all of that. Google Analytics basics, UTM basic training course, all of it's in there. And
an audit. And so it's not a course part. It's literally our team goes through and audits your Google Analytics account to find the red flags and the green flags. So we've got that so dialed in now that you'll get a report of like what's working, what's not working. And then you can go fix that stuff through the training and or hire our team or whatever you wanted to go do. So it's a combo of courses, walk through step-by-step videos and actions, and then also an audit that comes with it. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. And I'd say the last thing is, just as you guys are looking to scale and grow, Most companies do not set up a data budget until they're over about 50 million in annual revenue. And by then it's like, well, you've flushed so much money down the drain. The rule of thumb, usually after a company crosses 50 million, is they're spending 1% of total revenue, top line revenue, on data. That's how important this is. In the beginning, you don't need to budget that, right? But like even at 50 million or 5 million in annual revenue, just setting aside $50,000, right? And so many people spend so much on marketing and all of these efforts trying things out, and then they don't ever spend money on analyzing them and making sure they were working. So even if you can't afford 1% right now, just set aside maybe 0.5% or maybe, 0.25%, so that you guys can track this stuff and have some sort of budget to do this in the future. Because even if it's not us, and we don't care if it's us or somebody else, this is an investment that yields return on investment every single time, because it answers your questions about what's working and not working.
Oh boy.
Very cool. Awesome, gang. Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight and put that presentation together. That was awesome. Can I get a round of applause for AJ and Megan real quick?
Yay. Awesome. Thank you, bud.
For us, by us.
Yay. Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for the opportunity. We love the Revvenue platform. We love the community you've built, and we just love to help people get through this part. So we're in this together, and thanks for letting us be in front of each other. Look forward to the next one. We'll let you know when we can do that one.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be awesome.
And we're here to help. Hit us up on the platform, hit us up on the email.
And seriously, just like he meant, like we will get on calls with people, educate you, and then maybe not even work with you for a year and a half. And that's okay, because we want you to have the information and resources you need in the next year and a half to make the right decisions. And so we'll point you in the right direction, even if it's not the right fit right now. We just really love helping. So reach out anytime.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see all the comments and stuff. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everybody,
All right,
have a great night. We'll get this recording up into the members area tomorrow, and we'll get this out to everybody who couldn't make it tonight as well. And so for those of y'all who did come live, thank you as always. It wouldn't be the same without the live audience and the questions, which makes this so valuable. So thanks again for coming. We'll see y'all next round. Take care.
Thanks. Mike, should I make you the host real quick?
No, it's okay. We'll go ahead and yeah, I think that'll do it.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Bye,
Talk to
guys.
y'all soon.